Hello everyone. I thought I would do a short video on what is happening in Latin America, in Bolivia, um, because as you know, sometimes I share with you when I listen to news and conversations and interviews in the Spanish-speaking world and and French, and I share them with you because they probably don't come up in your normal feed. Okay, so what happened in Bolivia was a coup attempt, and it didn't work. And the leader, I will go through all the details. The leader is now imprisoned. Now, let me start at the very beginning. There is I'll give you the names. The president of Bolivia is Luis Arce, all right? And when I saw him, what was it, 2 weeks ago, going to St. Petersburg, to the economic forum there, and speaking there, and uh, having a meeting with Putin, I thought, oh my goodness. There is a coup coming, obviously. There is something coming now. How is he going to deal with that? Perhaps not a military coup, but certainly sanctions and then everything else. You know, the color revolution thing. You know, all that. I didn't think he would take the form of an actual old-fashioned military coup. I thought that was in Latin America. That was perhaps Chile was the last one in 1973. Since then, they have been able to be manipulated in other ways, you know. But anyway, I thought, oh my goodness, so obviously. Okay. What is happening here is that Bolivia has, I think, is one of the biggest sources of lithium in the world. I think is well, I don't know whether it is the the, the greater the biggest, but it has about 29% of lithium. I think the next is Mexico with 21%. I have seen these figures somewhere. Argentina also, much less, but in any case, so and many other minerals and natural resources. Okay, so um, President Arthur is trying to become part of BRICS. So that gives you the background, and obviously you have to expect what is going to happen next. The United States has managed to get now Argentina under control with this new president that they have. But President Arthur, they thought that perhaps it would be easy because there is some contention there in the country. I won't go into the details, but one of the problems of Latin American democracy, which hasn't really been around for a long time, is that there are still, you know, issues when it comes to okay, the people elect somebody and do not elect the other one, you know, the one who was president before, and these two people continue to fight. In other words, there isn't a you know, the acceptance that if you have lost the election, then just let the other govern. They start fighting with each other. This is perhaps, you know, the toothache that young democracies have to go through. But they keep fighting. And so what happens is that the country is always divided, this band and this band, no, the other one, and so on. So, and they're always the same people, you know. So it is very easy for, as they say, our powerful neighbor to the north to coming and just they take advantage of the chaos a little bit there, and it's very easy for them to destabilize the country. Okay, so there are many interviews I have been listening to now that they're saying this is something that we have to try to avoid. In other words, the next step in our young democracy is to try to say that if you were president and you have lost, okay, now you need to go away. Okay, let the other, and then perhaps you can come back, but don't keep fighting. Okay, so that is a problem, and it's very easy for their neighbor, their powerful neighbor, the United Stations, as they call them. So what I'm going to read to you is actually, I have been listening to several of them, and a good summary of it is that, first of all, what happened was that the military, the army with a few tanks and things went there. The president actually reacted immediately, dismissed them, put someone else. I will be reading from their news, and you will see. But what happened also was that the people immediately came out in favor of the president, and actually abusing the tanks and shouting at them and saying, how dare you, and so on. So they were not that terribly confident. And as soon as the president took charge and so on, they all started running away practically. There was no infighting there. They just sort of all went away. It was almost, it's tragic, but it's almost a little bit of a comedy, really. But okay, so let me share with you from one particular channel of news. Okay, this is all very okay. Humiliated that the U.S., after its resounding failure, I did the translations very quickly, so try to tie it up in your mind. Okay, humiliated. That is what the U.S. is after its resounding failure of its most recent coup attempt in Bolivia. But after a magnificent display of strength and cunning, President Luis Arce dismantled the coup attempt led by the ambitious, this is the name, Juan José Zúñiga, who was dismissed and replaced by the loyal commander José Sánchez. Arce, the president, showed that Bolivia will no longer bend to Washington's machinations, leaving Biden and his administration empty-handed with a shameful setback in its interventionist record in the whole of Latin America. How many more times will the U.S. have to fail to take away its eyes from our continent? Zúñiga, the attempt one, the coup, Zúñiga had dreamed of an easy victory, but these coup dreams vanished in the blink of an eye when reality hit them with the force of a Bolivian gale. What has Washington to do with all this? As usual, it is not a secret that the U.S. has had a long and questionable history of interventions and support for coups in Latin America. Only since the 1950s, the White House has played a crucial role in the destabilization of governments that do not happen to align with their interests, Washington's interests. In this way, the coup attempt in Bolivia is just the latest episode in a series of late failures that show the decline of American influence in the region. Various sources indicate that Washington not only approves but also coordinates and finances the destabilization of our governments. Their reasoning is straightforward. Any government in Latin America that challenge US hegemony will be removed, either through open military coups or economic sanctions or disinformation campaigns or false flag events. Our history is full of these examples. Since the overthrow of Jacobo Arbenz in Guatemala in 1954 until the recent attempt in Venezuela. The Bolivia case is no different. The declassified CIA documents and State Department records reveal a constant pattern of covert and overt interventions with psychologically based operations aimed at undermining the stability of governments in our continent, and the tactics are always the same. Identify ambitious and unscrupulous and disaffected leaders, provide them with support and logistical logistical and financial support, and wait for the right moment to act. In this case, in this present case, Zúñiga appeared to be the perfect puppet for them, but they underestimated, and they are underestimating resistance all over the world due to their arrogance. They underestimated the resistance capacity of the Bolivian people and their determination. It goes on for a while. Okay, so this is another blow, not just to Zúñiga himself, but to Washington's credibility. And in an increasingly multipolar world where emerging powers such as China and Russia challenge American dominance, this failure in Bolivia is a symptom of an obsolete and poorly executed strategy. Criticism, therefore, is not only appropriate and accurate, but it is necessary, because how can we not laugh out loud when we watch this empire wobbling and stumbling and staggering all over the world? When facing resistance from small countries tired of their dominance. President Arce showed a remarkable ability to manage the crisis. The swift destitution of Zúñiga, the reorganization of the high military command, are testimony to meticulous planning and precise execution. After a solemn act, when he replaced the military, loaded with ritual and symbolism, he swore in new commanders of the three branches of the military. Immediately the new high commander, José Sánchez, having been sworn in, took to the floor and with a clear and forceful message. He addressed the military in their tanks trying to go into the presidential palace and said to them, "I ask you, I order you, I command all of you, all army personnel mobilized in the streets, to return to their barracks immediately." And lo and behold, all we saw were army officers running away, military vehicles, which just a few hours before spread panic, then with people coming out into the streets to support the government, they began their return to their barracks, something like that. I should have tied up the translation a little bit. And then I saw an interview with a very much respected geopolitical analyst, Ariel Gutierrez. I followed him. He has a lot of experience and a great background in geopolitics. He studied and worked all over the world. Studied in La Sorbonne too, and anyway, he's very sedate and he analyzes it. And I followed him. Anyway, they interviewed him, of course, right away, and he talks about our long-suffering peoples in long-suffering countries, in long-suffering continents. And these people are fed up. And now that they feel that there is a Russia and a China there, he put it in much better terms, but he said, suddenly these countries that have been so abused and so maltreated, these long-suffering countries are saying to themselves, well, perhaps now someone can help us, kind of thing. You know, we are not alone. So actually, this is in the psychology of the people. He goes on to explain it very well, but he said, you know, what Russia is doing is actually having a very clear effect, psychological effect, in a lot of peoples in the world who have been, you know, maltreated because they're small, because they are powerless. Okay, and now they see them, they're saying, well, perhaps they can come to our help. Or perhaps, as in the case of Bolivia, perhaps we can join the BRICS and then we will be able to defend ourselves. And he goes on and explains this. He says, there are no coincidences in geopolitics. For something like this, someone has planned it, someone has authorized it. And he goes on to say, when these things happened, it is because someone has authorized them. Let me be categorical, he said. In the West, and I mean the West, from Turkey all the way to where we live here in South America, to put it in some way, no initiatives, no operations, whatever you want to call them, no military operations of any kind, certainly. Nothing is done without first going to the United States Embassy to ask permission. Never. In the West, no initiative by certainly by some general somewhere. Always you go to the US Embassy to inform, to ask authorization, always, sometimes to warn them but always you have to get that, okay, go ahead, as it were. In the West, including Turkey, and there were some attempts there of a coup a few years ago, and of course in Latin America, this happens. There is not one single commander who can take an initiative like this without first going to the United States Embassy to ask permission, or at the very least to tell them that they're going to do it. Yes, then he goes on to explain how it is so easy for the United States to do this, because young democracies have a lot of fault lines, and one of those fault lines in Latin America is that they have to learn that the one who lost the election has to go away, come back in another 5 years, but for the moment, don't keep tightening the rope all the time against the person who's in government now who has defeated you. Okay, so that is my thing about Bolivia. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is this thing that is going on with Nigel Farage here in England, because a few weeks ago, or perhaps 2 or 3 weeks ago, I did a video saying, and this was my point, that I wasn't going to vote for the Reform Party. I wasn't going to myself to vote for him, and I gave my reasons. And I don't know whether I explained them as well as I could have done, but my reasons were that for about 3 years I had seen that his geopolitical understanding of power in the world, that I didn't think he quite got it. Or, okay, I disagreed with his stand, okay? He was, at the time when I did the video 2 weeks ago, up to that time, he had been very much against Russia, very pro-Israel, and I said, look, I cannot, because I cannot vote only on domestic issues, because we are at a point in the world where our country is led is more important, because our politicians are obeying orders. It doesn't matter whether they tell you taxes, this, that, and the other, then they may or may not do it according to the instructions that they have, according to the direction that global government, powerful people want to take it. So to me, the geopolitical stand is crucial. And so since he was pro-Ukraine and pro-Israel, I disagree with those stands, so I couldn't vote for him. That was my video, okay? Now, it appears, I told you many times that I do not have a television. And so I don't watch the news from the legacy news, as they're called here in England. I go to other sources and so on. And lo and behold, I see that Nigel Farage is being criticized because apparently he said that Russia was provoked. So of course the whole media came onto him and asked to explain and so on. So all of a sudden the media is all against Farage because he said, I don't know how he said it, I didn't see that video, that Russia was provoked into going into Ukraine. Okay, so you would say, well, that's okay then. So it seems that for whatever reason he changed his mind, and now Lali, that is my name, Lali. Now Lali, you can actually vote for him because you know he agrees with you. So you have, okay, no. And let me explain why. I would have to ask him, where did you stand in the question of Israel and Gaza? Okay, because Nigel Farage is very good at understanding where the pulse of the people, the population is. I think he has figured out that a lot of people might be against the war, continuing the war in Ukraine, and for the United Kingdom having such an active role in it. And I think most people are a little bit worried, and they're not, 100% pro-Ukraine as they were 2 years ago. And I think he knows this. And I think he realized that since all the other parties are where they were, pro-Ukraine, that he could actually get this other dissenting view, which he feels is strong, but the other parties are not seeing or are ignoring. And so he's saying, well, I'm going to actually express this sentiment. I am not accusing him of cynicism necessarily. I am saying, I'm going beyond that. I'm saying that he has been given permission to 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 postulate this line. All right, um, given permission, yes, that is what I mean. Okay, by the powers that be. That is my impression. In other words, yes, okay, you go against us. Yeah, don't worry. Yes, the press, which are always like 3 steps behind. Oh, terrible thing! You are pro-Putin, this and that. That's okay. Okay. um, don't worry, we're still protecting you, kind of thing. But you spouse that line. Why? Why? Well, because of, have you heard of Meloni in Italy? She was also telling the people all they wanted to hear. She was there saying, I am going to represent the opinion of all of you. And when she got there, she turned around and she didn't. In other words, she was, let's put it, one of them. And I think in the case of Farage, it's the same. They have been giving him permission to actually bring in all these dissident voice, dissident feeling of the majority of the people. And if he were to win, okay, whether he would still hold that line or not, we would have to see, or whether he would weaken it. But my point is, where are you on the Israel-Gaza thing? Because if you are for Israel, that means, to me, that proves to me that you are actually with the powers that be. The only thing is that with Russia, Ukraine, since they're losing, they don't mind you saying, oh, this is, um, perhaps, Russia is not all to blame. Perhaps Putin is not all that evil and so on. But what you cannot do is to say something against Israel. That goes deeper. Just in case you're left to this little doubt there. They don't mind if you have a little doubt about Putin or Ukraine, but you cannot have that doubt against Israel. And they would come actually, well, no, that will not be allowed. And so I would like to know where he stands there. And that will tell me who his masters are, if any. And that is my contribution for today. Thank you. Bye-bye.